both with consulting services and with technology-wise, with extending some of the capabilities of the apps on the Microsoft 365 platform. So some of our solutions and services. So we work primarily with Microsoft Project, Teams, and the Power Platform. We have consulting services, workshops, and training for all of those. And we also have our own suite of pre-configured apps. So what these apps do, they take all the solutions that I talked about, and they get you started out of the box quickly with a low-cost investment. And they also expand some of the capabilities of those solutions. And if you want to check out some of those more, we have an App 360 suite on our website. And it'll show you all the ones that we have and what they all do. So what we're here to talk about today for the Microsoft platform, you have the power of choice. So Microsoft has 3 levels of project management solutions that you can choose from. So if you want to do light everyday tasks, you would use Planner. To go extend that a little further, Microsoft came out with Project for the Web, and that's their newest solution. And Project for the Web gives you some light project management, tasks management, a little bit of resource management, and some reporting. And for full PMO, you would use Plan 3 or Plan 5, which is Project Online. And that gives you the full project and portfolio management for all your time tracking, financials, all your resource management, everything you would need for full PMO would be Plan 3 or Plan 5. Today we're here to talk about Project for the Web, Plan 1. So Project for the Web is built on the Power Platform. So it gives users a little bit of a modern look and feel, a little bit of better UI. So Microsoft came out with Project for the Web just to give users a little bit of a better look and feel, and feel more end users feel more comfortable using the platform. The problem, what we're seeing with customers with Project for the Web is it doesn't have the full capabilities that they're looking for. So we bridged the gap with our app called PPM 360. So PPM 360 takes Project for the Web and extends the capability more towards what Project Manager PMO is looking for, with that nice UI that Project for the Web gives. So you have your task management, your collaboration with teams, a full project intake process that's automated. You have more reporting with Power BI out of the box, giving more insights, more data. And you also have that overall governance with PPM 360. And we're going to go through these more in the demo, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what you're going to be seeing today. So this is a full PPM lifecycle, and PPM 360 takes Project for the Web and gives you that full end-to-end solution. So we'll start with a project intake. How are we getting those ideas out there? How are you submitting project ideas? How are they being scored and prioritized? PPM 360 will show you how we do that. And then once those projects are created, you can start with building out your schedule. And as you're building out your schedule, you'll see you're able to collaborate with teams and share documents, and work with Planner as well. And then we'll show you all the analytics and reporting in Power BI from PPM 360, and those full portfolio dashboards that you're not going to get with Project for the Web. And we also do integrations with Project for the Web. For this demo purposes, we only have an hour, so we're not going to go through that completely, but in the future, if you have any questions on that, you can reach out to us, and we can definitely talk about that too. Before the demo starts, if you guys have any questions throughout the demo, you can put your questions in the chat or raise your hand or just unmute and ask. Neil loves questions, so he'll be excited to answer them.
Definitely. All right, so let me get started with the demo. So let me share my screen. And what I'm going to do as part of this demo is kind of walk through a life cycle of a project. Start with project intake, and then we'll go into managing the project and whatnot. So I'm going to hit different areas here. I'm going to hit some Power Apps. We'll talk about Power Automate. How do we want to automate the approval process and the setup of the projects? We'll take a look at Project for the Web and some of the capabilities around that. How we can extend Project for the Web using Power Apps, and then finally, as part of this process, I'm including integration with Microsoft Teams and how we're using Power Automate to do that. Okay, so a lot to show you, but it kind of all flows, overall as part of the process. So if we start with project intake, project intake is how do we process project proposals, project request, work request, ideas, business cases. There's all kinds of different processes that kind of float around the idea of project intake. And for intake, there's a couple different ways you can handle it. One way is to use a Canvas app. That's basically what I'm showing you here. Canvas app is more typically, you're going to use a Canvas Power App when you want to maybe open up that intake process to, say, everybody in the organization or a wider audience, right? Because a Canvas Power App usually is included as part of your Office 365, Microsoft 365 base licensing, your E3, your E5 licensing. You can also incorporate an intake process as part of a model-driven app. That might be where it's a more formalized process, but it would also be a more limited amount of users that would access it. Okay, so what you're seeing on the screen right now is a Canvas app that's managing an intake process. So here we can see all the different requests that are currently going through the system, who submitted it, what its current process is, what type of request it is. If I want to go in and look at the details of any of these, I can just go in, click on that, and then I can open up and see the details of that particular request. All right. If I want to incorporate an intake process as part of a model-driven app, so here if I go into our PPM 360 app, over here on the left-hand side on the menu, you'll see there's a project request area. And in here, you'll see all the requests that are currently going through the process. Again, similar concept to the Canvas app, but the look and feel is a lot different. Model-driven apps look more like Microsoft Dynamics, if you've ever seen Microsoft Dynamics, and has more of a control over the look and feel. But with any of these, I can drill down into it and then I can see more details about that particular request. Okay. Now for the demo today, I'm going to actually use our Canvas intake app. So I'm going to start a new request. And I'm going to call this the North America demo, webinar demo. And I'm going to say who the project sponsor is. So I'm going to select myself. And then here we have request types. So one thing that you can do with the Power Platform is you can automate the setup of your projects. So with Power Automate, based on the request type that I select here, we're going to make sure that the project's set up in a certain way. So for example, maybe I want to use Microsoft Teams with that particular request type. Maybe I don't. Maybe I want to use Planner for some of these. Maybe I have a schedule template or a particular governance workflow that I want associated with that project type. Maybe I'm using Project Online for some request types and I'm using Project for the Web for others. So again, using this request type, we can really guide the creation of that project to the right tools, the right setup, and fully automate that. In this case, I'm going to say it's an individual project, and that's going to use Project for the Web, Microsoft Teams. And And then we're also going to use our PPM 360 app. Then the other fields that you see here are kind of your standard project request, project intake fields. So let me get some sample content for this. Let's go back to here. So I'm just going to paste in, whoops, it's not copying my values. All right, hold on. I guess I got to actually select it. So going back to here, so I'm just going to put some sample content in these fields, but these are kind of your typical, justification of why this project should be approved. Why do we need to do this project? And we could have some financial information. This is pretty basic, but you could also have a more detailed financial analysis. The scoring tab, this is pretty popular with a lot of our customers. The ability to hit the requester with certain questions, just so you can get an idea of what is the prioritization of this particular request. So as they answer different questions and they supply different values, all these can be weighted and it's going to calculate a score for this particular request. So down at the bottom here, you can see what the priority score is. Again, that's a function in this particular Power App. And then finally, you can also attach files. So maybe I want to attach a file that is an SOW, maybe a vision document, a requirements document. I can include that as part of the submittal process. So it's going to go ahead and submit it.
Neil, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
For the scoring, if a customer doesn't need that, is that something you can hide?
Yeah, everything that you see here is configurable. So fields can be changed or additional fields could be added, tabs could be hidden. The tabs could also be security based. So maybe you only want to see certain types of users have access to certain tabs. We can set up security role for each of the tabs as well. All right, so there you can see my request has now been submitted. Now, at this point, we're handing it off from PowerApps to Power Automate. So with Power Automate, we're going to do two different things. First thing is we're going to have an approval process. So it's going to send an email out to whoever the approvers are. They can then review this particular request, approve or reject it. So if I go to my email, if we go up to here, you can see there's our request that we just submitted. And in the email that went out to the approver, you can see a synopsis of some of the information that was in the actual request. The whole idea with this is we want to give the users the ability to, or the approver, the ability to maybe approve it or reject it without having to actually open up that form. If they do want to open up the form and get to all the information, they can just click on it here. But down below here in the email, they could either click on approve or reject and put their comments in. Or you can also have additional buttons, like I need more information, for example. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and approve it. Now, in my demo environment here, this is a very simple approval process. The first person to approve it means it's approved. You could have more complex approval processes as well. For example, if the financials was above a certain threshold, maybe it needs to go through multiple levels of approval. Which actually someone asked that question just now, Richard. That's exactly what it could do. So now, once the approval's done, a couple things are going to happen. So one is the project's going to get created in Project for the Web. So I'm in our PPM 360 Power App. So this is another Power App. This is a model-driven app. Where we can extend Project for the Web to collect more information about that particular project or to manage, the overall project. So if I go down to the projects area here, you can see this is where I'll have a portfolio list of all the different projects. And as you can see, I have some graphical indicators to give me an idea from a KPI perspective how the project's performing in different areas. But then we also have other information like the % complete, start date, finish date, how many hours are on that project, yada, yada, yada. And as I scroll through here, you can see all the different projects. And it looks like alphabetically here. Here's our project that we just created. So our North America webinar demo project. So if I want to go in and look at more details of this particular project, once I drill down into the project, this is where the Power App is now displaying some different views and forms that shows me more information. So I have a summary view or a summary tab, which I can get some basic information about the project, or I could fill more information in about the project. So let's say for this project type, it's going to be a large project. This is what the category is going to be. So maybe it's an infrastructure project, and maybe it's been approved. And then here I can start setting my KPIs. Now, in this example, I'm just manually setting whatever those values are, toggling them. But you could also have Power Automate look at information about the project and then automatically set what the appropriate value is based on information in the project itself. Okay. Some of the other tabs that you see here could be things like business case, your benefits, estimates. Again, all of these can be configured depending on whether or not you want that information or how do you want to collect that kind of information. Budget information. Task we'll get into in a minute as we look at Project for the Web a little more deeply. I'm going to actually do that over in Teams. But then we also have things that are related to core project management functionality. So collecting action items, so if I go into here to action items, click on a new action item, I then have a form that I can fill out to keep an action items log. Again, all this is built into the Power App itself. Same thing with issues and risk, change request, lessons learned, and then status reports. So with status reports, if I want to create a new status report, I can go in here, give it a name. Specify what the reporting period is. And then for each KPI, I could put what the current value is and some comments about why that value is that particular value. Okay. And what this will allow me to do is then have a history for all my status reports. Now, in this scenario, I'm using the status report to report the current status and the narrative for that week of why we are at whatever status we're at. We can then use this information and pull it into, say, Power BI, along with other information about the project to create a more comprehensive project status report. Okay. Now, up at the top here, you can also see what our business process is. So what are the different phases, stages, excuse me, gates that this project's going to go through? This can also be set as just something manual that the PM can go in and progress it to the next stage or the next phase. You could also tie Power Automate into this so that to go from, say, initiating the planning, it's going to notify somebody and it's going to go through some kind of approval process. All right. So again, the beauty of everything I'm showing you so far is we're leveraging the Power Platform. Okay. So with the Power Platform, we're using PowerApps, Power Automate, and then eventually Power BI to automate all of this process and integrate all the process together. Okay. Now, besides the project being created here in this particular Power App, the way my Power Automate flow was set up is I also wanted a Microsoft Teams set up automatically for this particular project. So if I go into Teams and I scroll down here, you can see there's a Microsoft team for our project. So this was set up automatically by the process. And when I go into here, you can see we set up a couple different tabs with information about that project for the web project. So if I click on the project details tab, this is showing me those details of the project that we were just looking at inside the PPM 360 Power App. Okay, but now it's focused purely on that particular project. So it's the same thing, I'm basically looking at that same information. So there's that status report. And the PM can go ahead and update this information, or, as a resource, maybe I would have a read-only view of this same information. Or if I want to log issues, as a user, I could go into here, log an issue. And this to the Pika. Blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. And what the status is, so this is currently active. So again, we can go through, we can submit all this information. Now, a team member could log this into the issue log, and then this would show up within the, maybe status report or the Power BI reporting for this particular project. So if I go back
Neil,
to
we
the
have a
issue tab here,
question.
see the issue that I just logged. Yep. In Teams, would that create the members, the owners? Yes, it does. So when I get into there's a couple different ways to handle that. One is, as a PM, I could start adding individual resources that are going to work on my project to Teams directly. Because Teams is using the same Office 365 group that the project is also using. Okay. Now, another approach, though, is when I go to the taskboard tab here, this is going to open up the details of the project for the web schedule. And when I go into here, you can look at this in a couple different ways. So one is, if I go to the grid view, here I can start creating a project schedule. The board view gives you more of a Kanban board. It's similar to Microsoft Planner that Aaron talked about earlier, where you can create different cards that represent the task and then assign them. And then you also have a timeline view. So I'll do a quick demo of this in a second. But to go back to Richard's question, if I wanted to add team members to this, over here you'll see the group members. So I can go into here, and then I could add, say, Topeka. I want to add Aaron. And maybe I'm going to add Jarrell. So I can go in and I could start adding people to this. And then that'll also add them, to the Microsoft team and everything else. Now, if I go into here and I want to start creating my project schedule, I can go into here and start entering my information in. So if you've used Microsoft Project, on the desktop, or maybe Project Online, the main difference with Project for the Web is it has a modern interface, so it's a lot more streamlined. It's a lot easier to use, a lot easier to learn than your traditional Microsoft Project scheduling. So if I go into here, start create some different tasks. Let's say closing. It's going to be, testing, training users. I could close out. As I'm adding task in here, if I want to give it some more structure, like you would with Project Online, I can select the task. Just like any other Windows app, you can hold the Shift key down or Control key down to select multiple tasks. And in here, I can go in and say I want to make it a subtask. That way I can give it some structure. And then here, if I want to assign these to people on my project team, when I go into here, the people that I added to the group are now going to show up as the resources. So I can assign whichever resources I need. Okay. And then I could go in and say, how many days is it going to take for this? so maybe. And if I want to see additional information, there is an add column here. So let's say I want to also see the % complete, the start date, the finish date. I could also look at, the amount of effort, et cetera, et cetera. So here again, I'm building out the overall project plan. Now, the other views here, and again, this is something that, project doesn't do, planner does, but project doesn't do. If I want to set up more of a Kanban board, right? So in here, I might have different departments or groups. So, maybe this is the design team. This is the, change management team. This is the project delivery team. And then what you can do is drag and drop and put some of these things into the different buckets.
Hey, Neil, we have a couple questions.
Yep. Good.
Can they be linked to Jira for time tracking purposes?
So if you want to integrate with Jira or other solutions, you could do that using PowerAutomate. So depending on how you're using any of those other tools, we'd have to take a look at that and then decide how do we want to push that information either over into Jira or pull information from Jira. But you can definitely use PowerAutomate. PowerAutomate has, I think it's over 300 connectors right now. Jira is one of them. But you can also use like direct API calls to do your integration through PowerAutomate as well. So can you save a plan to use as a template for future similar projects? Yes, you can. So there is the ability to copy projects, and with PowerAutomate, you could also automate the copying of the projects themselves so that you could set up different templates and pre-populate your project schedule that way. On the board view, you can see here I set up my different buckets, but I could also group it by who they're assigned to or the progress view. So with the progress view, we can drag and drop and update those tasks. Now, before I do that, I want to go to the timeline view because the timeline view is another area where Project for the Web is a lot different than Microsoft Project or Project Online. Again, this is a much more modern interface. So for example, if I go into here and I want to link tasks together, I can just go ahead and drag and make those connections. I could also zoom. And if I need to move a task or make a task longer, oops, let me grab this one, it's a little easier. If I need to move some dates, I could just go ahead and adjust them on the fly. So again, it's a very responsive, very fluid, modern interface. Makes it a lot easier instead of if anybody's ever fought Microsoft Project to get the schedule to do what you needed to do. What this allows us to do is have a little bit more control over the nuances of the schedule. Okay, so going back to the board view, if I go to the Kanban board view, if I drag and drop and start updating some of our tasks to show what's been completed so far and what's being worked on, it's automatically updating your % complete as well. All right, so again, that's a great way to make it very easy, drag and drop for people to update their task or to let them know what's being worked on or what's been completed so far. Okay. Go back to project details here. You can see based on those drag and drops that I did, we're at 34% currently. So is it possible to have longer, more complex schedules and linking projects to programs? So that's a great question. So I think currently the maximum number of tasks you can have in a project for the web project is 500. They will be increasing that number, but that's the number they recommend that you stay within that. If you need more than that, you probably should stick with Microsoft Project or Project Online currently. Now, if you want to group them into programs or portfolios, we do that through our PowerApps. So if I go back here to the PPM 360 app, over here you'll see portfolios and programs. So if I go in, for example, portfolio, I can create a portfolio. And what's nice here is in Project Online, a lot of times your portfolios or your programs are simply a custom field where you're setting the value to say this is part of that particular program, this is part of that particular portfolio. With this, we can actually have a set of metadata related to the portfolio itself or to the program itself. So for example, here, I can say what's the health of the portfolio, description, what's the current stage, what's the start date, finish date, what's the budget of the overall portfolio. So again, a lot of this information, we can put in at the portfolio level. And then using Power Automate, we can bubble up information about the projects. But if I click on the projects tab here, now we can see all the projects that are in that portfolio or within that program. And if I want to add an existing project, I can just go ahead and click on it here. It'll give me a list of all the other projects. So I'm going to add the one we just created. And now that project's in this particular, it's on page 2 here. There you go. All right. So yeah, you can create the portfolios and programs. I don't know if I have a program set up here. No, I don't. But if we want to create a new program, hit save. Now I can go into here and I'm going to start adding some of my existing projects. And actually, I don't have the view set up for this, so I can't see those projects right now. So I'd have to fix that. But yeah, with this, you get a good idea of what we were talking about. So, okay. Now, all this information that's going in, whether it's the schedule information, the task information going into project for the web, or in the PPM 360 Power App, all the other information related to the projects, the portfolios, the programs, all this information is going into the Dataverse. So the Dataverse is a cloud database that's part of the Power Platform. And because all that information is going into that database, with Power BI, we can then go into here and create different Power BI, reports and dashboards. So this is, excuse me, this is an example of that where we can go in, have a portfolio dashboard, get high level visibility into everything that's going on within the portfolios, the programs, the projects. I can have, excuse me, I could have different filters set up. So if I want to narrow down exactly what it is that I'm looking at, but then I could have other reports as well. So for example, here's a portfolio timeline, milestone tracking across all my projects, resource information. So as I'm assigning resources to the projects, who's working on what's their workload looking like, how many tasks are they assigned to. Again, since it's Power BI, I could pick a particular resource and focus in purely on what their workload's looking like or what projects are they working on. Same thing if I go down to resource assignments. Overview of all the different tasks. Individual project timeline. All right. And then for individuals' point of view, what's their workload? What are the tasks that they're supposed to be working on and when and how many hours are assigned to them? Same thing with the timeline view. What are all the tasks? And from a timeline perspective, when are they supposed to work on those tasks? So You can see the task here across multiple projects. Okay, and since this is in Power BI, you have all the Power BI capabilities. So for example, if I want to set up a subscription so that this will automatically be emailed to my executive team on a monthly basis, the first of the month, I could set up subscriptions to automate the delivery of that. If you don't necessarily want to do the subscriptions, that would require a Power BI license for whoever's receiving it. Instead, what you could also do is export to PowerPoint, PDF, or export the data out to Excel. Okay. So Tyrone's asking, can the resource views be assigned to the resource manager for them to assign those resources? In Power BI, at least with Project for the Web, you can have it set up where you could filter by the, whoever the manager is of that particular resource. Project for the Web currently doesn't do a lot of resource management. Microsoft is on the cusp of adding a lot of that type of functionality where as a resource manager, you would be able to approve different bookings and then assign the resources to the projects that way. Some of that capability has been added, but it's not fully baked out yet. So probably by, maybe the end of the summer, we should see some more of that. All right. That's about all I have to demo today, but are there any other questions you guys have? Going once, going twice. All right, I'm gonna hand it back to Erin and Deepika.
Thanks, Neil. Oh, we have a quick one that just came in.
Sorry, I was muted. Demand and capacity, that's exactly what I was just referring to. So if you want to do true, resource management, then you really need to be able to get more of a grasp on the capacity in particular. So you do get the demand currently in Project for the Web, but the capacity part hasn't been fully baked out yet. So as they're adding some of the resource management capabilities in the next few months, you'll start to be able to manage capacity as well. Today, that's something that you would have to use Project Online in order to manage that. Okay. So with Agile, it depends. So the Project for the Web, so if I go back to my Teams environment, this will give you at least a very light, Kanban board style of Agile. But if you want more true Agile, you're probably going to be looking at Azure DevOps or Azure Boards. That's Microsoft's offering for a more formalized Agile process. Now we can integrate that with this so that we can pull information or synchronize data between the two. You can also, if you have other Agile tools, Jira is a big one. You could also integrate with that, and that's a more formal. I want to say more formal, but a lot of times you're going to still manage the work that the development team's doing in a tool like Azure Boards or Jira. But then you're going to take some of that information and push it up into the portfolio for your portfolio reporting. So you would basically push that information up into PPM 360, Power BI, so that you get visibility into those Agile projects. But this isn't necessarily meant to replace Azure Boards or Jira. Do projects have to be individual team groups or can they be channels? That's a great question. So I actually have a scenario like that right here.
Neil, you're not sharing anymore.
Yeah, let me share my screen real quick.
Thanks.
So if you guys can see, this is actually an example for that question. So one of the things that you can do with the Power Automate, instead of creating a Microsoft team for every individual project, maybe we want to create a program that's related to the Microsoft team, and then sub channels for each project that's in that program or that's in that particular portfolio. And that's basically what you're seeing here with this modern CRM program. So the general tab here would have more information about, the overall program, or, the program schedule, or a Power BI report related to that. But then individual channels would be the details, the schedule and the details of that particular project. So for example, this one's set up not necessarily a project for the web, but it's using Planner and Project Online. But same concept. So yeah, you can, with your automation, that's part of what you need to decide, is how you want to make sure that your Microsoft Teams are structured. All right. Any other questions?
I think we might be safe this time. I'm going to share my screen really quick. Thanks everybody for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time. If you have any questions or want to reach out to us, please feel free to do that, and look out for any more of our upcoming webinars. We did record this session, so you're going to be getting an email with the recording and also with a link to the survey. I put it in the chat as well if you wanted to fill that out really quick for us. It lets us know how we're doing with all of our webinars, if you guys are interested, or if there's any other topics that you'd like to hear about. As always, we are on social media, so if you check out our LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, we post all the recordings for all of our sessions, and also demos of all of our solutions and apps. So if you get a chance to check that out, that usually helps a lot of our customers out. And have a good, happy rest of the Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you.